All right, on the development of emotion, the primary emotions are present in humans and other animals. In humans, they appear in the first 6 months. And so these primary emotions are going to include surprise, interest, joy, anger, sadness, and fear, and disgust. And so these emotions transcend culture. So you will find all of these emotions in all cultures on the planet. And related to this, there was a guy named Paul Ekman that did research on this, the idea that primary emotions, that all cultures have them and that they express them in the same way. Like everyone smiles. In all cultures, they have smiles, they have frowns. And his research was the basis for a show called Lie to Me, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. The self-conscious emotions, these are going to be the secondary emotions, require self-awareness. They require consciousness. They require a sense of me, that I'm different from other people. Those develop later than the primary emotions. So these will include things like jealousy, empathy, embarrassment, shame, pride, and guilt. And so what you need for other people, not just a sense of me, but you need other people for all those emotions. You don't need other people necessarily for, interest or joy or anger, but you do need them for embarrassment or pride or guilt. Some experts call self-conscious emotions, such as embarrassment, other conscious emotions. Again, you need other people. They probably don't develop until about the second year, again, because you need to have some type of cognition for self-conscious emotions, because you have to be able to think about other people. Emotional expression is involved in infants' first relationships with their caregivers. These are reciprocal or synchronous, meaning that you are both having an interaction with those emotions, essentially. So a baby cries, you take care of the baby, you talk to them. It's a back and forth, almost like an emotional conversation. You can think of it like that. How babies first communicate is through crying and smiling. This is their first form of emotional communication. They discuss 3 types of cries. The basic cry is often prompted by hunger. It is a little bit more subdued. It's like, wah, wah, wah. And this signifies it's apparent. You can hear the difference between these cries pretty easily. But for the basic cry, it's kind of like rhythmic, just wah, wah, not super intense. The anger cry is more forceful, so it's like wah, wah. They're getting more frustrated, and so you can hear that expressed in that cry. The pain cry, as a parent, is probably one of the worst ones, and you'll see it coming sometimes, because sometimes it will begin with a big inhale. So if they fall down and they hurt themselves, you'll see them go, it's coming. Wah. And they'll let out these giant cry, and then there'll be another pause because they have to take in a big breath. So wah. And so that's going to be the pain cry. Again, it's one of the worst. And again, also, parents can tell the difference between all these kinds of cries. On the smiling, they talk about 2 different kinds. The reflexive smile, which doesn't occur because of stimulus. They just kind of smile. The social smile, the other one, occurs in response to a stimulus. And so this will happen about 4 to 6 weeks after they've been born. And a lot of times this is going to be in response to a caregiver's voice. You walk into the room, you say something, it makes them smile. A little bit more on the development of emotion in infancy. One of the baby's earliest emotions is going to be fear, and it typically appears around 6 months and peaks around 18 months of age. One of the places you'll see this will be with stranger anxiety. So this is the fear or wariness of strangers. It emerges gradually, first appearing at about 6 months of age, and then again it peaks. It can be less depending on the circumstance. So there's going to be less stranger anxiety in their own house compared to outside their house. Or if they're like close to their mother, basically, do they feel secure? If they feel secure, they're going to have less stranger anxiety compared to if they're in a weird environment, they're not around their mom. Separation protest, this is going to be crying when the caregiver leaves. The place that you'll see this a lot will be at the daycare during drop-off. So it's almost just best to just drop them off and go, because if you stay, it's just going to make it worse. And this tends to peak around 15 months with U.S. infants. During the first year, the infant will gradually develop an ability to inhibit or minimize the intensity and duration of their emotional responses. Basically, they'll learn to self-soothe. One of the ways they do this is they will suck on their thumb. Leif has a little bit of an interesting one. He pulls on his lip. That's the way he self-soothes. He doesn't suck his thumb. Never had a pacifier or anything like that, but he'll pull on his lip to self-soothe. They mostly, though, for self-soothing, they will rely on the caregivers. In the context are obviously going to influence the emotional regulation. We talked a little bit about that with the stranger anxiety. But it's going to depend on other things too. When it's just like you. So emotions are going to be affected by how tired they are, how hungry they are, the time of day, the people they're around, where they're at. If you have a kid that hasn't had anything to eat and they're tired, they didn't get enough sleep, they're going to have emotional outbursts essentially. But they do learn to adapt to these different contexts, and they do start to have some type of emotional regulation. That's the development of emotions in infancy. In the next few slides, we'll talk about early childhood.